Hey everybody, welcome to Gym It Possible, the brand new podcast for the hobby, by the hobby, and all about the collectors and the creators of the hobby, and not about the drama. So that's the number one thing. And I'm also going to be pushing my new grading service at gradedsports.cards, the raw review grading service, the first raw review with subgrades, so you can see how close your card came to a Gym Mint 10. Also, we do cleaning on those, and we offer bulk discounts. So go to www.gradedsports.cards, link below. And thank y'all so much. I'm not going to push that huge during this podcast. The biggest thing about this is about you, the collector, and about journeys, and also nobody knows anything about me, which is my fault. So I've been doing this for years. But I really don't think I'm that interesting, and I also want to focus on what's worked for me. I'm not that smart of a guy, so I didn't want to spend time focusing on things that were different than what was working for me. So that's my fault for not letting people know about me. So nobody knows anything about me. But 13 years ago, I was living with my grandmother on a twin-size bed with my taking care of my 4-year-old son or 3-year-old son, and I was looking around because I'm a driven person, but that was a pretty low time in my life, and I'm a lifelong card collector, but I wasn't doing very much collecting back then, and I'm also an entrepreneur, but being broke all through my 20s and then being at that state is pretty eye-opening, but also frustrating. But now I'm here. I have 4 employees. I got an bustling eBay store with close to 25,000 positive feedback. And also a new grading service, gradedsports.cards, and the GSC raw review grading service. So anyways, that is what's going on now. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about the journey. And one of the biggest things that happened was when I finally said, I'm going to do eBay store. I told myself for 5 years straight, Ethan, you need to do that. You need to do something. You need to get some kind of business going, because you can do it. If you need to do eBay store during your free time, because you're never going to have any time to start a business when you're working a 9 to 5. So in my mind, I was thinking, do the eBay store. But finally one year, it was around October, and I said, Ethan, do it. So I went out and I sold everything in the house that wasn't nailed down, and I got myself a computer, and I got myself a printer, and I said, I'm going to do this. So from October, November, December, January, I was constantly thinking, what am I going to sell? I wasn't thinking sports cards, because as far as I was concerned, it was I'm a lifelong collector, but I didn't think, how am I going to do that? When I used to think, I was like, there's the people that own the stores, and then, so the collectors, the hobby collector stores, and then everyone else just has their own collection. That's what happened in my head. But then I started seeing, people were buying and selling, so there were people that were doing it. And there were eBay stores completely going towards that. So I was thinking, how do people do it? And then I kept on hitting rock. Nothing I did made sense. How am I going to flip the card? I also wasn't grading cards at the time. So unfortunately, my father passed away, and I live in Northeast Alabama, so I flew up to Utah. And the whole time I was there, I was completely... my mind was just going 90-0, but I also wanted to just kind of escape from it. So I would actually escape and just look at my phone and look at eBay auctions, and my mind can just escape, and that's something that actually is a good thing at that time. Was a good thing. So I was just looking at eBay auctions. I was like, none of this makes sense. How I was bound and determined to make something make sense. So finally, I was on the way back to Alabama. Right before the flight, I saw an auction that ended, and it was for 100 Michael Jordan cards, and it was for around $20-something, and it was about to end. And I already saw a few of the cards. I was like, that card it was his Impel, not the Impel, but it was his Hoops Dream Team card. And I was like, in 1993, that card was worth $5 to $10, and now the whole lot of all the cards, and I didn't even recognize all of them, but I was like, the whole lot of cards was worth only 20 something dollars, 20 cents a piece. So when I finally landed back in Alabama, I looked at it and it went for like $36. And I said, I don't know what's going on there, but that's what I'm doing. I'm going to find out what's going on there. So I just started buying 100 lots of Michael Jordan cards, and I just said, you know what? If they're going for 30 cents a piece, then I'm going to make this make sense. So that's what I started doing. And I started getting cards, and I started looking. I saw, the cards that were dented, the scratched, and the bad cards, and I started seeing a lot of cards that I would see over and over again, and I would just keep them in my mind. I am a collector, and I would even collect the Beckett basketball price guides, so I know a good bit about it. But I didn't know all of the parallels and everything, and so I just went to school, learned every single night. I did my 9 to 5. I came home, I learned, I posted things, I trial and error every single night. I read somewhere, post 10 items a day. So I would post 10 items a day, and then in the morning I would ship things off, and then every single day I would post 10 items or as many as I could, and then in the morning ship everything off. And then it got to the point where I'm going to go into episode 2. So this is going to be a cliffhanger. So episode 2, I'm going to go to the point that everything changed, but I would still, up until that point that I'm going to talk about episode 2, cliffhanger, got to keep them coming back. So in episode 2, I'm going to talk about the moment that everything flipped to a whole nother level. So, but that's what I was doing every single day. Now, I wasn't on Instagram and YouTube, and I wasn't looking at everyone's collection and being jealous. I literally was just on eBay. I would come home every day and just improve my store and collect and look at the prices and go through my cards, and I wasn't grading at the time. So I was just studying the cards and diving into it, deep diving every single day, and I did that for around 8 months. And that's when the second level hit. But anyways, so that's actually going to work out perfectly. Now I'm going to go in with the interview with Jake from 90's BBall. Thank you so much, and we'll get that right now. Thank you all so much for tuning in. This is a brand new podcast we got going on here. But we got Jake Roy here, and from 90's BBall Collector on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, everything. He's a hobby legend, and he did it the hard way, putting up content and getting people excited about 90's basketball cards. And so, how you doing, Jake? How's where are you living in? Is it North Carolina?
No, it's funny. I have always wanted to visit North Carolina, but never made it there. No, so I'm in New England, the birthplace of basketball. So
sweet. And you say he's got some sick family members, things going on.
Yeah. Nothing too crazy, but just a couple to check up on every now and again. Yeah.
Exactly. But what we got going on today is we're going to start a different kind of hobby, kind of conversation, get to know people, get to know Jay, kind of what makes him tick, and we get back into his hobby collecting. So we're just going to start off with some pop culture. Get to know finally see the man behind the curtain. What makes Jake tick? So, are you a Picard man or a Captain Kirk? Tiberius Kirk.
Definitely a Picard guy. I grew up loving Star Trek, but Captain Picard, actually, I've got one right over here, was nice. I love Star Trek The Next Generation. That's what I got started on. So I know a lot of people, a lot of purists. My uncle was the big Star Trek guy, and he's a original series. But actually, my favorite captain out of all of the Star Trek is Cisco from DS9. So Picard's a very close second, though.
DS9 was that's a deep track, but I respect that. It's weird that there hasn't been like some offshoots of the Next Generation. You have all these offshoots of the Star Trek, the Next Generation, because everybody loves Spock and Kirk, but there's not been any kind of, and maybe there will be, because I loved like the cerebral, like sci-fi. They really had so much fun with the Next Generation.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they knew that they were literally riding a ship that they respected, and they were like, let's do something special with it. So I really appreciated the Next Generation.
Yeah, Kirk was a space cowboy, whereas Picard was a little bit more of an intellectual in some regards.
Oh yeah, are you Riker or Spock?
Oh, Riker. I would go into the when I was a kid. I was like third grade. I had a action figure of Riker that I'd bring in, and I said I want this haircut. So yeah,
Nice.
Riker guy.
That's holding up. You and I. We might be able to get like the hobby best hair. I think we're holding it strong, and we definitely grew up 90s, and we might have both went in there and said I want the Riker.
Right.
That's awesome. So what about favorite Batman?
Oh boy,
are you a 90s guy with that, or are you going Keaton?
Yeah, Keaton. I'm gonna go Keaton on that.
Kids, they don't get it. They don't understand it. They don't understand how dark it was and how off the rails it was.
I was telling one of my friends, I can't believe it, but thinking back, I was in like second grade, I think, when I saw Batman Returns. And looking back at that movie, I wouldn't let my kid watch it. Now my daughter's in first grade, and I'm like, I don't think next year she'd be ready for that. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff that went right over my head. But it was, they were very dark and kind of looked into the seedy underworld of the city. So,
oh yeah, I mean, then they went like super duper Kitty and Mr. Freeze, Arnold Schwarzenegger,
yeah.
and rubber nipples on their outfits. And it went a little too far. And but my son thinks this new movie is like one of the best movies he's ever watched ever.
Really?
And I'm like, I don't even think it's as good as The Dark Knight.
I would agree with you. This newest one was the first two things I said, and everybody I've talked to about it, it's dark. That's the first thing that everybody says. It's dark, and it's not necessarily dark from the content. It's literally dark.
Exactly.
So,
and I would say, if to give my son a little credit, I would say I like this first Batman than the first Batman from the Batman Begins.
Yes.
So absolutely. I'll give him that, but I'm not going to pretend like this is Goodfellas or something like that. It's just not. It's just it was a good first into this new thing.
I'll watch the next one for sure.
Yeah, definitely. We're all on board, but some of us are getting carried away with it. What's your favorite director?
Oh boy, so that's a tough one. I can tell you who isn't, and that's Quentin Tarantino. I cannot.
So this is your take. Your take. You got a hot take. Okay. What's the reasoning behind that?
So it's just the style of his movies are very chaotic and hectic. I don't like trying to follow the storylines, and I can't say I've watched everyone, because once I see a couple, and it's just his style. It's not my cup of tea. Whereas I can't say he's necessarily my favorite director, but a director that I've enjoyed a ton of his movies is James Cameron, and he gets some hate. But I would probably say my favorite director, and just looking at the movies that he's put out that I like the most, is Martin Scorsese. I think that's who I'm going to pick.
I have to say Scorsese as well. I think if not putting words in your mouth or anything, but if you want to try a Tarantino movie that is not so herky jerky and taking you for a ride, I think the Hateful Eight
Okay.
director's cut, especially because it's just it's a well told long story, and it's character driven, and it's not just pop culture reference and
Mm.
cut and somebody getting blown up, and it has that, but it's not. But it's it's done completely differently. So I think um, you can appreciate that.
Okay.
It's done a lot differently. And, I mean, it's just people in a cabin in the woods.
All right. I'm gonna check it out.
Yeah, the Hateful Eight. So I think, but I mean, Scorsese. You can't go wrong with Scorsese.
Yeah.
I just go back and number one movie of all time for me is Goodfellas.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but here lately, I've been going back and I'll just watch The Departed. Be like, I guess I'm gonna watch The Departed tonight.
So good. So good. Departed, Shutter Island was great. Just thinking about Leo movies, but also like Wolf of Wall Street, I can't get enough. Like that's just, and then the other thing about Wolf of Wall Street that really gets me is they encapsulated the 90's like very well. The late 80's, early 90's. I love a good period piece. When they do a good period piece well, like the Titanic, I eat those up.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Wolf of Wall Street. I have an aunt and uncle that absolutely hated that I watched it. They're like, "You watched that filth." It was like I admitted to going to a early 1990s New York porn theater or something. They're like, why would you tell me you did that? So they did not like that. But anyways, but yeah, Wolf of Wall Street. That's very very well done. Oh yeah, I'm a music snob. I think, and not that I think that my music taste is any better, but I think that older music was so much better than our music, and people think that it has to get better and it has to change with the times. But when you're talking about even past the Beatles, but when you're talking about Led Zeppelin, uh, Elton John, Queen, and just thinking we've got nothing like that today.
Mm-hmm.
And by far in Motown, and when you start looking at Al Green and Sam Cooke, and when you start looking at the songs that they've done, and the level of artistry, Marvin Gaye, and the stands they took, nobody's doing that today. Or if they do, they're not doing it well.
Yeah, and I mean, you mentioned a name there that also doesn't get enough credit for how influential he was as Sam Cooke. But another person, I love music, so I could go down this road for a while. But Smokey Robinson has had such a huge impact from all different angles of music, and still continues to have his hand in it. It's incredible. A lot of those Motown is like a really sweet spot for me, and my wife loves Motown as well. So,
no, you can't go wrong. Change is coming. I told my son, I was like, just the other day, I was like, listen to this song, "Change is Coming" by Sam Cooke, and
it still holds up.
It holds up, and I told him it's one of the best songs ever written, and just the story behind it, everything going on, and then it was like a warning of what's coming, and then he was shot and killed.
Right.
That's how good the song was. Basically, it is alarming, but yeah, oh my goodness, and now music today is terrible, but that we're old.
There's some stuff we can enjoy. It's like candy though. It's like a guilty pleasure.
Yeah, it's like now and later's. But anyways, so should it be harder to get into the NBA Hall of Fame?
Ooh, I'm gonna say yes. Now I think one of the misconceptions, because we always think about it from the NBA perspective, but living in the birthplace of basketball, one of the things that they really hone in on is it's the Basketball Hall of Fame. So they try to celebrate basketball from its global sense, which is why they have like certain categories. Right, they have certain categories for international players and different impacts. But there are, and this is going to kill me. So I have a running joke, like if you see on my channel, and when I pull a guy who's in the Hall of Fame that some people might forget, like Mitch Richmond, I'll say Hall of Famer, and that's kind of a tip of the cap to my buddy who's like, we get it already, we know, but he shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame, right? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of guys like Mitch Richmond, that I loved and were great players, but a Hall of Famer, I don't know if it necessarily rises to that occasion. But to the same degree, being in New England, I can't stand Paul Pierce, and the fact that he's a Hall of Famer, and Chris Webber too, kind of
You think
grinds my
Tony
gears a
Kukoc
little
should
bit.
be there?
I'm on the fence about Tony. But I mean, for what he, again, going back to the international argument, what he was on the international scale, yes. But his body of work in the NBA, definitely not. So,
Vince Carter, that was a huge debate because you knew he was getting in. And then all of a sudden he just started playing so long that he deserved it. So that's one of those things that if he would have retired 5 years ago, he still would have made it. But now I think he deserves it. So
yeah, I think so too. I agree with you.
But even if you can make it just by being amazing at North Carolina and have your bring basketball to a whole new nation, a whole nation in Canada, and then also have your slam dunk championships. He could have made it in just from that, but now he does totally deserve it. Let's move on. So you already answered this in your podcast, Rose, but I'm going to add another name. Rose, Hardaway, or Grant Hill. No injuries. Who makes it? Who has the most championships?
So if we're adding Rose into the mix and we're looking at championships.
Yeah, so we're also adding that we'll just say they stay with their first teams. That'll give you more excitement. So same teams stick together.
Boy, I'm most championships. This kills me to say it. I'm gonna have to say Rose, and part of the reason is because if they're staying with those same teams, and I don't agree with it, I would want to go there. But I think Orlando's a tough draw for free agents, and after Shaq left, that team just didn't have enough firepower. Whereas the Bulls, they had some runs with those teams with Taj Gibson and Joakim Noah. Remember Jimmy Butler was there, a younger version. So I think that they had the talent, and they with an MVP on the roster, and it being Chicago and trying to relive the glory days of MJ. I think they have the draw to get the talent to win a couple.
I can see that. You'd have possibly Stackhouse Grant Hill.
Yep. It always felt like one success came at the cost of another. It never felt like they were both soaring high at the same time, whether it was game to game or even like when Grant Hill was injured, so that one felt like it was not the right style for the two of them to coexist. But maybe Jerry Stackhouse in that iteration with Penny, now we're talking something that could be magical.
Oh, I can see that. That'd be awesome. If you were to tell someone that was starting in the hobby, let's say that somebody's just watching this. This is going to be a podcast. My podcast is going to be about the hobby and collectors and creators. So if somebody was getting started, and what would you say a big helpful tip for them? They're just getting started and they want to make good content.
So if they want to make good content, the thing that I would really suggest people do is focus on what they know and they like the best, which is why I focused on 90's BBall cards, because I like basketball cards from the 90's and I know it well. If I try to be like a generalist, there's a lot of stuff from the 2000s that I don't know as well. And I think that it leads people to kind of water down the depth of their content. If they're focusing on stuff to be broader, it's the whole, if you're trying to serve everyone, you serve no one, right? I would rather be very, very specific and have a very narrow niche, and, have that just be, you're the person that's known for that niche. So
Hmm.
I would say hone in on what you like and you know, or if you don't feel as though you know enough yet, just do some more education. But don't worry about being perfect, right? Let us join you in that journey of you evolving and growing.
Perfect. So along with that same evolving, growing, while you were in your going through your hobby journey and everything you've been going through, what would you say would be like a moment where I like to think of it as like the ball slowed down, or in a sports term, where everything kind of slowed down and you stepped out and you saw it and everything made more sense. Like
Mm.
you saw what was going on in your hobby collecting.
You know, so it's funny because I never feel like I truly 100% get it. From the stance that I feel like I'm always learning something new. There's You can never know everything, right? But like one of those moments that I really felt like I was kind of like in my groove, so to speak, was at the National in 2021. It felt like I was able to find stuff that was in my niche. I was able to make deals for the stuff. There were a couple of things that were just a little bit too far out of my reach, but I prioritized and I was able to get the things that were highest on my list. And I just felt like that was a moment, a few days that really felt like, you know, this is something I can do well. Um,
Did it
so
also
yeah.
feel the same way like in your creator uh, journey? Because that was also
Mm,
like after everyone was able to come together, meet people. I know you did like let's get ready for the
yep.
national videos, and you got there and you had people that you sat there and talked to and meet up with, and I wasn't included in that. I was in the hospital, but did it kind of feel like wow, because you weren't able to go out and meet people, but then all of a sudden you were able to? Did it kind of feel like it just all came together, like we're finally the they're finally letting us go back out, and then also everyone that I've been talking to for the last year and a half from my basement is finally now I can see them, and that we're together, and that was the first time. Was that the first time that actually everything was all clicking on that too?
Mm,
It's funny you say that because no matter, you know, I don't look too much at the numbers as far as like followers and subscribers and stuff like that. I always have this like I feel like I'm a little guy, even though I've been putting out content for like 4+ years now, and I've been doing it for a while. And you know, when I do look at the numbers, they are much more than I ever thought they would be. I always feel like I'm kind of a little guy. I always look at like the big numbers. I should like the Ken Golden, for example, right? And folks like that, and you look at the best, and I know I'm not that, but I'm also niche. So I never really feel like I truly get it for content. I'm always trying to figure it out. I'm always trying to improve. We talked before about how you know professionally about SEO. I'm still trying to figure that out, and I think sometimes I kind of like I'm like a squirrel that finds a nut. Like all of a sudden, like something worked, and I'm like, okay, what did I do right? You know, and sometimes I should probably give myself more credit than I do. We're always our hardest critic, but I think that the piece about like kind of that world at national is definitely seeing everybody in person because like the hobby, it's almost natural that a lot of us are introverts in the hobby. It's a very a hobby that really lends itself to introverts, as well as just psychologically a lot of people tend to be introverts more so than extroverts, if you're looking at Myers-Briggs and stuff like that. But so seeing people and interacting with them in person is always going to be different, and I think for the better. A lot of people who might come off a little bit aloof on the internet or on video or wherever, when you see them in person, we're all just talking about the stuff that we're passionate about. It really brings those barriers down, and everybody's a lot more accessible. I didn't run into anybody that, at least in my experience, I know, some other people might have had different experiences, but I didn't run into anybody that was like, I'm too big time for any other person, right? So that's always good to see. And I
Mhm.
think was you never really know until you get into a room with everybody how they're going to be in person.
I ran into one guy that I I don't even know. I must have rubbed him wrong at some point, or maybe just there's just so many different. I'll say this about the hobby and drama in the hobby that there's so many weird reasons not to like people. Like you could have misread something they got, or misread a text or a comment and took it personally, or you could just they could just post something and you just there's some people that I hate everyone that does that
Mm,
type of thing. We're all just talking on the internet. But there was one person that was, as I was talking to them, I was like, this person, I didn't think they liked me on the internet. And now I know they don't like me.
okay.
And that was funny. I was like, it's just funny and in person to just slowly go, oh, okay, you don't like me.
Right. Right.
Your opinion of me is concrete, and meeting me in person did not change that. So it was funny, and I chalked it up to them being we're just people. So
Yep.
it just happens that
Yeah.
we it's I don't agree with it, but and I like to give everyone the benefit of the doubt, and that's the way I roll. But I'm not
Yep.
a better person, just a different person. So
Yeah. No, definitely. I think it's interesting too when you say that, because I know that there are some people that I like saw in passing at National and wanted to have a chance to like say hey, and but it's so busy. There's so much going on. There's so much to see. There's so many people to talk to that it's almost inevitable you're going to miss somebody. And I remember there was somebody who and I can't remember exactly who it was, but they were like they thought that I like didn't say hi to them intentionally, like I had something against them, and I was like, no, absolutely not. You
no.
were one of the people that I missed a couple of times, and I was like, oh shoot, I'll see him tomorrow, and
Hmm.
you get busy with other things, so it's like it everything moves so fast, but like
Oh yeah,
it
I'm sure. I'm
yeah
sure it was and especially I was in the hospital, so I was going. I was like, I got to get back, but it was it was fun, and it was well needed. This year, Atlantic City, I'm going to be there all the nights, um, and it'll be the first time I've done it without being in the hospital, so that's good.
knock on wood, right?
Well,
No hospital
exactly.
for any of us, right?
No, nobody in the hospital. Um, let's see here. So, what would you say if, in closing, somebody wants to go 90s cards and they have a, let's just say they're a huge Sonic fan.
Okay.
They're from Seattle. They want to go Sonic cards. And let's just say they want to have a time tested with everything that's gone over the last 4 or 5 years, pump and dump, and they just want to have a collection that if somebody walked by, they would be like, "That's nice." And they would you say binders? And we don't necessarily have to say they have to have them uh, graded, but would you say grinders, top loader, binders, top loaders, and then what kind of cards should they go for? How would they show off that collection?
Yeah, really good question, because it's something I debate with myself all the time with my penny collection. My preference, right? So I think about it from the standpoint of like, if I'm gonna share my collection with somebody, what's the best way that they can look at it, but also I can transport it, right? So
Mhm.
that's why I usually lean towards either top loaders, or now I'm switching a lot of my cards into card savers just because they're thinner and they're lighter. But that way you can kind of hand somebody a box and they can kind of go through them,
Mhm.
which you could theoretically still do with a binder. But I feel like there's just something about being able to like, hold an individual card and be able to look at the front and the back. And like some of the Z folios, you can't look at the back of the card, which sometimes the artwork on the back is really cool. Sometimes you have refractors on the back, but sometimes also like the details that really make the card. Maybe it's the serial numbering, maybe it's calling out whatever parallel it is, are on the back. So I would say like I like to have them in some sort of an individual holder, and I know everybody's got their own flavor. Some people like one touches, some people do like graded stuff, but yeah, have them that way in a box that you can transport with you easily. That's my preference.
Sweet. Yeah, it's and then if they were going like say 90s basketball, what kind of parallels you're looking at?
Yeah, so parallels, and I recently was talking to Kyle on the Wax Museum podcast, and we talked about the most iconic parallels in the 90s. So this is something kind of fresh in my mind. But refractors, you've got to have refractors in there, especially like the 93 Finest and the 96 Chrome. You've got to have some legacies in there. You've got a few years to pick from 96. For me, really 96 through 98, 99 are the sweet spot for legacies. Credentials are another parallel that you've got to have in there, starting in 96 and 97, 98. I think is the pinnacle, and then 98, 99 is really nice as well. And 99, 2000 is actually growing on me a little bit, but not quite as nice as the other ones. But then I think anybody's going to say the pinnacle is going to be PMGs. So I would say those four parallels are the ones to hone in on. Excuse me. But I like the inserts the best because when we were growing up in the 90s, everybody was chasing the inserts. So if you're going to go for something other than those four, refractors, credentials, legacy, and PMGs, if you're going to go for something other than those four parallels, I would say go for some, just iconic and great inserts.
Sweet. So you like a Rick Schmitz refractor? You're really showing off in your binder. That's nice. Well, thank you so much for your time, Jake. I really appreciate it. If anybody wants to use Jake's affiliate code for greatestsports.cards, his affiliate code is going to be 90BB, and then just use his affiliate code if you're a huge fan of Jake. And thank you so much, sir. And I'll catch you at Atlantic City.
Appreciate it. Can't wait.
All right. Thanks, bud. Thanks again to Jake from 90's BBall. And once again, if you want to use his affiliate code on greatestsports.cards, you can use 90BB. And if you want to use his affiliate code. Also, if you want to become an affiliate yourself, go to greatestsports.cards, fill that out, send us a quick email. You can get your own affiliate code, and you can start bringing people to us. And if you want to give it a test drive, or if you want to even send me a message, if you want to get a few cards done just to see if you want to be an affiliate, or if you want to grade some more cards, we have a new test drive service where you can get 10 cards graded for $60. And then if you want subgrades, you can do 10 cards for $120. So subgrades on 10 cards for $120, $12 a piece. You're not going to find anything under $20. So anyways, thank y'all so much. Episode 1 in the books. Come back for episode number 2.